Order. Order. Honorable members, the Secretary will read the order of the day.
Resumption of debate on vote 1, the Presidency, Appropriation Bill, reply by the President.
I now invite the Honorable the President to reply to the debate.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Deputy President Paul Mashatile, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members, and fellow South Africans. Allow me to begin by thanking honorable members for what has been a spirited debate and in some ways an electrifying debate, particularly towards the end, not only because of the input that was made by the Minister of Electricity in the Presidency. He seemed to have gathered, all his strength to fire up not only electricity towards the end of the year when, as he said, we will have brought down load shedding, but also to electrify this House and the debate. So I thank you all for participating in this budget debate. This debate is, as it is in the past, the sign of a healthy, robust parliamentary democracy. The debate in many ways enabled a frank exchange of some of the key challenges facing our country, and I'm rather glad that many people who participated in the debate were able to reflect and make some inputs and in some ways also suggestions. Many of the contributions were useful, constructive, and well-informed. For example, the Honorable Groenewald urges government to prioritize water in our interventions as much as we have prioritized electricity. And I'd like to respectfully say that you are right, Honorable Groenewald, and I thank you for making that input, which is why we have placed investment in bulk water infrastructure, the technical support that should go with it to municipalities, and the reform of the water sector, and we place this foremost amongst our most pressing tasks. And as you correctly said, yes, much as we don't want to say it, people can get by without electricity, and I didn't say it, but they cannot get by without water. So thank you very much for raising this issue in the most constructive and positive way, but at the same time saying that we as government must pay attention to this as much as we are paying attention to electricity. But although there were some such contributions, there were also those contributions that sought to misrepresent and distort both the South African reality and the actions of this administration. The Honorable Steenhuisen quoted, and I was a bit surprised, some length of what I said in 2019. Didn't think that his memory would take him as far back as that. But he made no effort to mention to what has really happened in this country and in the world in the intervening period. So I'll remind the honorable leader of the opposition, before this administration was a year into its term, a devastating pandemic swept the world, causing the loss of more than 6 million lives across the globe and more than 100,000 lives in our own country. The COVID-19 pandemic triggered what the OECD described as one of the worst job crises since the Great Depression of 1929-1930. By some estimates, more than 225 million people lost their jobs worldwide, including a substantial number in our own country. We've counted some 2 million people who lost their jobs, and it may well be slightly more. To appreciate the long-term effects of the pandemic on the entire world, one need only look at the International Monetary Fund's latest World Economic Outlook 2023. It warns of a rocky recovery with the residual effects of the pandemic, high inflation, financial sector turmoil, and the ongoing effects of the war between Russia and Ukraine. All of these looming large. Besides the pandemic, we experienced deadly civil unrest in July of 2021 that easily cost more than 300 lives and the loss of an estimated 50 billion rand to the economy. And then we had the floods. International instability is fueling higher fuel, food prices, increasing the cost of living for millions of South Africans. And on top of all this, we are in the grip of an energy crisis that is many years in the making, the seeds of which were planted more than 2 decades ago. I state all this not to explain away any of the unresolved challenges that we face as a country, but I state them because perspective is, as always, very critical. If you lose perspective, you lose understanding. Despite the effects of all these developments, we've been working with determination to fulfill the electoral mandate given to this administration in 2019. We have, as an administration, been forthright about the challenges that our country is facing at the moment. The anger, the frustration that South Africans feel in the face of sustained load shedding is understandable. At times like this, the electricity crisis appears unrelenting, as if there is no end in sight. Yet, if one considers the work that is being done and the progress that is being made, as outlined yesterday by Minister Cyril Ramaphosa, it is clear that we have solid ground for hope. One of the honorable members attested to that. After listening to what I describe as an electrifying address, and maiden address for that matter, he did manage to instill some hope in the hearts not only of some members here, but in the hearts of many South Africans across the country. While we have been honest and forthright about the difficult months ahead, we are confident that the measures that are now in place, including the massive new electricity generation capacity, will enable us to end load shedding and achieve energy security. Indeed, the pessimism emanating from the opposition benches is in the end not shared by all. I draw members' attention to the Standard Bank's Group Annual Integrated Report 2022, where the Group CEO, Mr. Sim Chabalala, writes, South Africa's severe shortage of electricity is costing us dearly, he says. The economy has been severely slowed down for several years already by this constraint. We will continue to underperform for as long as the constraint continues to bind. However, The right set of policies are, at long last, in place, and a great deal of new public and private investment in generation is starting to follow. Standard Bank is, therefore, confident that South Africa will once again have a fully adequate supply of electricity within the next few years, close quotes. That is optimism. That is hope. Africa's largest bank by assets speaks in this report about the value of optimism. It says that optimism is a precondition for more accurate analysis, stronger leadership, and better outcomes. This is a sentiment that we share. As the Presidency, we share the belief that more space should be created for collaboration among social partners to solve pressing economic and human development problems. We have therefore sought to build a presidency that is inclusive and a presidency that is collaborative. We have worked to bring government, business, labor, civil society, and other social formations around a single objective of building a better South Africa that leaves no one behind. This is the essence of building a social compact. We were able to drive a well-coordinated and an aligned national response to the COVID-19 pandemic because government, business, labor, and civil society did come together instead of working independently and working apart. The impact of the Solidarity Fund is well known, as is the private sector contribution to another major project that we handled as South Africans, the national vaccine rollout. We can also credit such collaboration for the success of many other endeavors. The Youth Employment Service, for instance, known as the YES, is one of these. It is a partnership between government and the private sector to address high youth unemployment. To date, the Youth Employment Service has placed well over 100,000 South Africans between the ages of 18 and 29 in local businesses for a work experience. Through YES, approximately 6 billion rand in youth salaries have been injected into the economy and has enabled participants to support their families. Nearly 2/3 of these YES participants come from households that are reliant on social grants, and an estimated 40% of participants are employed on the completion of the programs that they get into. This is a practical example of social compacting at work to respond to the unemployment crisis, and that provides young people with skills and experience. I do once again call upon business to become part of this YES project and provide work experience and opportunities to the many young South Africans who are unable to get work because they have never worked before. Another good example of collaboration towards resolving the energy crisis is the establishment of the Resource Mobilization Fund by Business for South Africa in March of this year. This fund is raising funds to provide technical support and capacity to the National Energy Crisis Committee. The funds will also come from government. This will enable government through an independent procurement process to source technical expertise to support the implementation of the Energy Action Plan. As was the case with the Solidarity Fund, the contributions that are made by the private sector, development agencies, and other donors, including government institutions, to these collective efforts, these efforts adhere to the highest standards of transparency and accountability. The respective responsibilities of the partners are clearly defined, and no donor is able to exert influence or even politics on the processes that these efforts work through by virtue of their own contribution. The responsible government department provides the lead on any joint project in line with the mandate and applicable laws. We have taken every measure to ensure that there is no scope for capture or for the advancement of private interests that could be detrimental to the common good. Following a number of engagements with business and labor around the changes in the logistics sector, the Presidency, and working together with relevant government departments, is setting up a National Logistics Crisis Committee to resolve the crisis in freight, in our ports, and in rail, working together with the private sector. There are many such examples of cooperation between government and the private sector and labor. Contrary to suggestions of a gulf between this administration and business, both the Deputy President and I, as well as ministers, meet representatives of South Africa's business community on a regular basis. We meet to discuss their concerns and suggestions and to forge common solutions to critical problems. Our experience has been that the leadership of business appreciates the value of partnership and constructive engagement. As government, we do not see the role of business as oppositional, nor do we see the role of other role players who are important in the life of South Africa as oppositional. That is why many companies have been receptive to our call to invest in young people, to support skills development, to provide work experience to young people, and to employ young people in entry-level positions, and we continue to encourage them to employ them without the requirement of prior experience. We repeat that call today because, as any CEO with foresight will know, an investment in capable young people is an investment in the future, not only of their company, but it is also an investment in the future of the country. Cooperation is not limited to the private sector. The Presidency provides leadership to several broad-based bodies that bring together important constituencies in our country. The Deputy President is chair of the South African National AIDS Council, which has been at the center and the forefront of the fight against HIV, tuberculosis, and sexually transmitted infections. He is also the chair of the Human Resource Development Council, which provides strategic direction to all aspects of the country's skills development efforts. That we are upscaling the training of artisans is largely due to the work that the Deputy President is doing in the HRDC. The President chairs the Working Group on Disability, which brings relevant government departments together with stakeholders in the sector to drive the work to advance the rights of persons with disabilities, or disabled persons, as they prefer to call themselves. The strength of all these bodies is found in the diversity as well as the breadth of participants. They have been able to bind together in common programs, representatives, as well as various people across society. This is the spirit that guides the work, yes, of the presidency, and also the work of the Deputy President, as he now works with traditional leaders and military veterans to address their respective concerns and discuss the contributions that each can make towards the development of our society. Last month, we held the second Presidential Health Summit. In November last year, we held the second Presidential Summit on gender-based violence and femicide, and in August last year, we held the Presidential Social Sector Summit. Now, each of these summits has produced programs of action that are being implemented by a range of partners in pursuit of shared objectives. And these are South Africans who come forward with proposals, who come forward with practical things that can be done to better the lives of a big swath of South Africans. In all this, we are deepening and enhancing participatory democracy, working together with key stakeholders to solve problems on an inclusive basis. We're giving effect to the dictum of nothing about us without us. The presidency is also driving collaboration across government departments, across state-owned enterprises, agencies, and other public entities. A good example of this operation is Operation Vulindlela, which sees the presidency working with the National Treasury and other government departments to accelerate economic reforms. The latest quarterly progress report on the work of Operation Vulindlela was released earlier this week. It shows that we are moving ahead with the economic reforms that we have embarked on that will have a profound effect on the capabilities of our economy into the future. Cooperative governance is a key tenet of the Constitution and obliges all organs of state to cooperate with one another, to consult on matters of common interest, and to coordinate their actions and legislation. This is not optional, not for national government, not for provincial governments, and not for our municipalities. It is a must. Indeed, Chapter 3 of the Constitution says that all spheres of government and all organs of state within each sphere must cooperate with one another in mutual trust and good faith by fostering friendly relations and assisting and supporting one another. You would never have thought that a word friendly relations would be found in any of our legal documents, but it is. As the presidency, it is vital that in line with our coordinating role, that we bring together provincial and local government and consult on all matters of national importance. The President's Coordinating Council is the preeminent forum for consultation and cooperation between national, provincial, and local government. The PCC, as we call it, played a pivotal role in our response to the pandemic, providing guidance and facilitating coordination as we worked to reduce infections, to save lives and maintain livelihoods. The promotion of cooperative governance has been strengthened through the implementation of the district development model. This places the district at the center of an integrated approach for development across the three spheres of government. The DDM, as we call it, should assist in addressing some of the problems at local government level and the better use of powers, capacity, and resources of national and provincial governments to ensure effective service delivery to our people. The Deputy President has in recent months visited various areas to see how the district development model is being implemented. And as he is new in his position, he's come back to say to me, President, the DDM is an important instrument, and he has found it working extremely well in a number of areas, and recently in the Eastern Cape where he was. Cooperation between national, provincial, and local government is an important part of the presidential Imbizo program. The Imbizos are a vital tool of participatory democracy and allow our communities to have space to interact with the President, Deputy President, ministers, premiers, and mayors. We have structured these oversight visits in a manner where government leaders listen to and learn from the experiences of our people at community level, to report on the work done by government and to commit to implementable programs as well as interventions. Importantly, government uses Imbizos to constantly improve its systematic feedback processes to our people. It is not yet a perfect system, but we are improving with every Imbizo that we hold. As we promised the people of Drakenstein municipality 2 weeks ago, we will work together to address the concerns that they raise as well as the proposals that they put forward. And we will, as we said, come back to them in a variety of ways, with ministers going back and hopefully with local government, following up on some of the concerns that they raised. Fundamental to the approach of this presidency is to draw on the expertise, the experience, and capabilities of various formations and individuals across society. We have therefore established several advisory bodies, bringing together a wide range of people to provide insights and inputs based on the expert knowledge that they have, as well as the sound evidence that they possess. The Presidential Economic Advisory Council continues to play a vital role in advising both the President and relevant ministers on the most important economic challenges facing our country. The Council has contributed to the development of the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan in the wake of the pandemic. They've also contributed to the Energy Action Plan that we are implementing. The Presidential State-Owned Enterprises Council is supporting the implementation of the fundamental overhaul of the architecture of our state-owned enterprises. It is undertaking detailed work to identify the actions that are needed to turn our strategic SOEs around and to ensure the sustainability and effectiveness of our SOEs into the future. The Presidential Climate Commission brings together a unique blend of different social stakeholders to guide our climate actions, including our approach to a just transition. They bring together people in our communities, trade unions, business, scientists, and a number of other key people. Apart from its advice to the President, the Climate Commission has undertaken extensive social engagement and consultation to ensure that those people who will be affected by the actions we take are intricately involved in the decision-making process. More recently, the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council was established to both advise government and mobilize society around a comprehensive program to end corruption in all its forms. And as I said yesterday, they've come up with some really fresh and interesting ideas on issues such as how to safeguard and how to deal with the challenges we face in relation to whistleblowers. The Council proceeds from the understanding that corruption is often embedded in the structures as well as in the processes and cultures of our institutions, both in the public and private sectors, and that we need systemic change to rid our society of corruption. This Council is undertaking valuable work to support the implementation of the recommendations of the State Capture Commission as well. The Presidential Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Advisory Council that was inaugurated last year is tasked with reviewing progress around BBBEE, reviewing sector charters, advising on the various transformation charters, and overall charting the next trajectory of BBBEE. Honorable Groenewald, I will be passing on the document that you gave me yesterday to that council as well, so that they should look at it and analyze it so that you do not think that I should be the only one to go through it. So I hope you don't mind. It has been critical to the presidency that there is broad representation on these various councils and commissions, and that they draw the best in our society. Our country is replete with some of the best minds, the best thinkers, and these are the individuals and groups of sectors that we are drawing on to give as much advice as we possibly can, and also providing the leadership that is necessary. Each of these bodies, as I said, brings together talented and experienced South Africans who really add value to the work of government and support us, in particular in the fulfillment of our responsibilities. We cannot assure mutual prosperity. We cannot overcome poverty and inequality. And in the end, we cannot emerge from the power crisis, and we cannot resolve long-standing challenges unless we forge such partnerships. I see them as partnerships. The presidency is the center of government. The executive authority of the Republic is, in terms of our Constitution, vested in the President. This means that the presidency needs to be structured. It needs to be resourced and capacitated to exercise both its constitutional responsibility as well as its electoral mandate for which it is responsible. Honorable Prince Buthelezi encouraged the presidency to continue with its work even under trying circumstances, and we thank the Honorable Prince for his sage advice at all times, and thank you very much. But Honorable Buthelezi also raised concern about the current composition of the presidency. In considering the size of the presidency as with government more broadly, we need to ask how best should government be organized to meet the country's needs at this point in time. It is not about counting heads. but about attracting the necessary capacity, the necessary requisite skills and technical expertise to fulfill our crucial mandate. Our country has considerable challenges relating to inequality, educational outcomes, joblessness, disparity in the quality of healthcare received by our citizens, gender-based violence, crime, to name but a few. As the Presidency, it is our responsibility to drive progress on strategic priorities from the center of government. This is why the Presidency is coordinating important initiatives on economic reform, on employment creation, poverty alleviation, as well as gender-based violence. Through these initiatives, we ensure that the work of government is properly coordinated, aligned, prioritized, and effectively implemented. The Presidency is comprised of specialized staff, including policy advisors, legal experts, communication professionals, as well as researchers. Within this country's fiscal constraints, the Presidency has been able to mobilize resources and capabilities from various quarters through either secondments and voluntary service. This has enabled us to make progress on several fronts that would not have been possible without some of these very innovative approaches. We have also put to good effect the power to establish commissions of inquiry. These have enabled our government, through the Presidency, to inquire into and establish the facts around various matters of public concern. And these inquiries have led to important reforms. The recommendations of the Commission of Inquiry into Tax Administration and Governance were acted upon by SARS and supported the institution's turnaround. That we have a SARS that is collecting taxes to support the lives of our people is because we set up a body that inquired exactly what was happening in SARS, and its recommendations are today being implemented. The recommendations on the 2018 High-Level Panel on the State Security Agency are guiding the transformation of the state security architecture. Our law enforcement agencies and security services are implementing the recommendations of the expert panel into the 2021 July unrest. Across government, departments and SOEs and public entities were implementing the many varied recommendations of the State Capture Commission. This work is crucial for the national effort to eradicate corruption and ensure that state capture is never allowed to occur again. As we focus our efforts on cooperation, we must attend to the issues on which we remain divided. Even after nearly 30 years of democracy, there are some who misrepresent our country's history and who thereby misdiagnose the problems. Honorable Groenewald says that in the past, the 31st of May was known as Republic Day. This, he says, marked the day on which the yoke of English oppression and colonialism was finally cast off. No, Honorable Groenewald. It is not true that the 31st of May, 1961, was a moment of liberation. It was instead an affirmation of a political and economic system that perpetuated the oppression and dispossession of the majority of South Africans. It was a declaration that Black people had no claim to the country of their birth, no right, no means to advance their prospects. To recall Republic Day as a moment of liberation is, in the end, an affront to the values of the Constitution to which all of us have pledged allegiance. The so-called Republic Day was a day of humiliation for many Black people in this country. This is not a matter on which, in the end, should agree or disagree. It is a matter on which we should engage each other so that we can properly assert the values for which our democracy stands. As I conclude, allow me to thank the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, for the leadership he is providing on several important areas of the work in the presidency. Thank you, Deputy President. I'd also like to thank the ministers and the deputy ministers in the presidency, the Director General and the Secretary of Cabinet, Ms. Pindile Baleni, and all the presidency staff and advisors. I wish to thank the members of the various advisory and consultative bodies who have volunteered their time and expertise in the service of this country. Lastly, but certainly not least, when I thank Umtwana, I've thanked the IFP. So I've already singled out the IFP through thanking the Honorable Prince. Lastly, but certainly not least, I wish to thank the people of South Africa. It is the people of this country who are the true leaders, who raise their voices, who lend a hand, and who demonstrate to all of us that they are determined to be their own liberators. Look beyond the self-serving rhetoric from the opposition benches. Look beyond the immediate crisis and the negative commentary, and it is possible to see a government that is leading far-reaching reforms that will fundamentally change South Africa for the better. And I guess in the end, talking from a party political point of view, it is in 2024 that there'll be a clear separation of those who can take this country forward and those who are not. And it will be on this side of the. I still firmly hold the view that we will overcome the challenges that face us today. But more than that, we are establishing the foundation for a more capable and responsive developmental state. Through greater collaboration, we are establishing the foundation for a more inclusive economy and a fairer society. As this presidency, we are aware of the great difficulties our country faces. We recognize the weaknesses in many parts of the state. We are prepared to own up to our shortcomings and work to correct them. But what we are not prepared to do is to give up. We will never give up. And we will never give in as well. We are not prepared to surrender to pessimism and doubt. We are moving forward with rebuilding. We are moving forward with reform, with recovery, and the fundamental social and economic change that our people seek. These are difficult and painful times, but we will overcome, and our challenges will be behind us, and we will emerge a better, stronger, and much more united country. I invite all members of this House and all South Africans to be part of that journey. and I thank you. Nehelela kwala.
I thank the Honorable the President. I thank the Honorable the President. Order. I request members to stand and wait for the chair and the mace to leave the chamber. That concludes the debate on this budget vote and the business for the day. The House is adjourned.